We just had another team meeting.
Oh, wonderful.
We had a team meeting about how we haven't been acting like a team. I mean us, not you. Look, about the singing thing,
Look, dude, I don't even want to talk about it.
we just want you to know that we're gonna be there. Okay, cheering for you.
Huh?
Yeah, if singing is something you want to do, we should be boosting you up, not tearing you down.
Yeah, I mean, win or lose, we're teammates. Okay, that's what we're about. Even if you turn out to be the worst singer in the world.
Which, we don't know because we haven't actually heard you sing.
And you're not gonna hear me sing, guys. Because Gabriella won't even talk to me. And I don't know why.
We do.
I baked these fresh today. You probably want to try one before we tell you the rest.
It's weird watching this movie because obviously it was 2006.
Mhm.
We were
No.
9. So we weren't in high school. So it's weird to watch this movie and be like, what was high school actually like in 2006? And what is Disney Channel ified about this? Because it's completely unrecognizable to my own experience.
Maybe they still used lockers in high school in 2009.
Yeah.
You know,
Everybody's got pictures in their
by
lockers.
the time I got there, not a single person used a locker.
Yeah. It's a wild film. You seem to not like this movie very much. So let's get our cards on the table.
Let's lay it out there. This is a first for me on this podcast because this is the first time that we've done an episode on a movie that I cannot in good conscience give my stamp of approval. I don't really enjoy watching it and I think it's bad.
Yeah. But here, okay,
I'll give a precursor or a footnote. My wife loves this movie to Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
And grew up on it. When we were watching this, we were watching it in bed. She was sitting up in bed singing every word. She takes a deep breath and goes, I can still feel the magic as when I first watched it. Watching it with her was so enjoyable because of how much she loves it. And I recognize this movie is not for me.
Yeah.
They did not make this for me, and they definitely did not make this movie for 27-year-old me right now.
Yeah.
So
they did make it for you in 2006.
They tried.
Yeah.
This movie was primarily for girls, I would say, but lots of guys liked it too. They tried to get the whole basketball Troy thing to get guys in on as well. And it's definitely made for kids.
Yeah.
And it was a Disney Channel original movie, so it's a made for TV movie.
Yeah.
So I can recognize that it's not for me. And as far as Disney Channel original movies go, this is king.
Yes.
It's still popular today. Disney Plus made that whole new show about it. Like, it's still a thing in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And so for that, I'm like, it is impressive. Very well done for that. For me, I don't like it.
That's fair. So here's the deal. I picked this movie, and the reason I did it is not good objectively. It's like the other movies we've done on this podcast, Jojo Rabbit, The Social Network, others are all like objectively really good movies, or at least really, really enjoyable and high quality.
And we've done some children and family movies in like The Parent Trap, Iron Giant, where you're like, those are probably made for kids.
Still
but they're
objectively
still
good.
objectively good.
Yes. This is campy. So it's bad, but it's enjoyably bad. And the nostalgia on top of it makes it a fun rewatch. So let's jump into a segment here. This is a movie that the writing at times is pretty horrendous. The acting at times is pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
And yet we overlook those things as almost an added, like it almost makes it better that it's bad. So I want us to dissect some of those moments and just call them out. So in this is a segment that we're going to call cringy.
This is the segment I'm excited about.
Yeah, so you can start. Have your way with this.
Okay. First of all, any background extra at the New Year's Eve party. Pick anybody and just watch them.
Yeah.
It's a robot. It's an alien in human skin. It is not a real person.
What about the guy at the New Year's Eve party who... First of all, what are the rules of this karaoke party?
No idea.
The spotlight is somehow being operated by someone at this like resort back room, lands on them too, and they say, no, they have no control. They have
get
to
forced
do it.
up there.
And then the guy says, Someday maybe you'll thank me for this. Or not.
The real thing that brings it home is at the end of that party, they've sang together, they've met, and they want to share numbers so they can keep in touch.
Yep.
So what do? They pull out their flip phones, they hand each other their flip phones, and they each take a selfie. And then they close the phones. There's no phones numbers exchanged. There's no names. Nothing is typed in. It is just, I took a selfie of me and I closed your phone and gave it back to you. And that's what they both do to like keep in contact.
Yeah. And then he turns and says, where are you from? And then she's gone. Gabriella.
He has a fantastic, for a movie like this, Zac Efron has a fantastic kind of confused, kind of shocked face that he does a lot.
Yeah, he does. He was working it. One that I love is whenever Troy's having like a private conversation with Gabriella, he says, my parents' friends are always telling them,
yes,
your son is the basketball guy. You must be so proud. It's like, they say your son is the basketball guy?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And then multiple people tell him that in this movie where they go, Troy, you're the basketball guy.
Yeah.
Like everyone is just like throwing this label on him.
Yeah. And his friends' parents
and he's standing there to hear it.
Yeah. His friends' parents are like, oh, thank God he's not the academics guy. He's the basketball guy. You must be so proud.
Well, again, that's where I think that these people who have never played sports are trying to get in the sports mode, and they don't know positions.
Yeah.
They don't know like starting point guard or something.
Basketball
All they know
guy.
is he's a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Just bringing up technology again.
Oh, I know exactly what you're about to say.
For them to
hack in.
I mean, that was hilarious. No, not that.
Okay, I'll say that one.
When Troy's team ambushes him to try to stop this musical. One,
Sammy Slamma Jamma.
Sammy Slamma Jamma.
Spider Bill Natrine, class of 72. He was the MVP of the league championship game.
Sam Nedler, class of 02, also known as Sammy Slamma Jamma. Yeah. Captain, MVP of the league championship team.
The Thunderclap, Hap Haddon, 95, led the Wildcats to back-to-back city championships. A legend.
Yes, legends, one and all. But do you think that any of these Wildcat legends became legends by getting involved in musical auditions just days before the league championships?
Get your head in the game!
No. These Wildcat legends became legends because they never took their eye off the prize.
Get your head in the game!
The Thunderclap.
They all clap. One of the best lines. First of all, that whole dynamic is weird that the team is like, he says something about, you got to be more focused. The whole team shouts, get your head in the game.
Yes. They're ready. They know when to say it.
That would make more sense if it was going to go into a musical number.
Yeah.
But
which means they had rehearsed that whole thing before.
Okay, guys, when he comes in, I'm going to talk about Spida. You're going to talk about Slamma Jamma. Chad says, after they've gone through each of these players and they've talked about how great they are, he led them to back-to-back league championships. A legend. And then Chad says, yes, legends, one and all. And then they proceed to open up a massive brick of a laptop.
Yeah.
Connect a massive webcam on top that somehow is immediately live feeding to another laptop.
Twitch.
Which that technology did not exist.
They're on the beta of Twitch.
And he doesn't notice. And even Chad like looks down at the camera, walks over to the laptop, and then like smiles at Troy from behind the laptop. It just makes no sense why he wouldn't see that.
This may or may not be a cringy thing. What I want to see is a prequel of Darbus versus Bolton, because the established dynamic before the movie even starts is Troy's dad, the basketball coach, is like, Darbus is the musical teacher listener. He's like, Darbus is going to take any chance she can to bust my chops, and that means your chops too.
If these were theater performers instead of athletes, would you seek special treatment?
Darbus, we are days away from our biggest game of the year.
And we, Bolton, are in the midst of our auditions for our winter musicale as well. This school is about more than just young men in baggy shorts flinging balls for touchdowns.
Baskets. They shoot baskets.
Stop. Guys, listen. You've been having this argument since the day you both started teaching here. We are one school, one student body, one faculty. Can we not agree on that?
And the principal goes, you guys have been at it since the day you started here. Like for years they've had a rivalry, but this is the first time anyone's ever crossed over. What is the rivalry?
Yeah, what happened?
I had that exact same thought.
I just had this thought. What if it's that Troy's dad tried to do exactly what Troy did in high school, and Darbus, well, I guess the age
was the
difference there.
Sharpay.
She was the Sharpay, and it like didn't work out for him like he hoped, and so that's why he's like, you gotta focus.
The theater people won in the end in the prequel.
Yeah.
And he was burned.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. My final nitpick is all these things are happening at the same time. The academic decathlon, which to be honest, I don't know if that's a real thing or not. It's on other Disney Channel content, like shows, like in Zack and Cody, there's one of those. But I don't know if they exist in real life. But the decathlon, the championship game, and the callbacks all happen at the same time. The callbacks you would think happen during school. The championship game you'd think happens at like 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And the academic decathlon you'd think is like a field trip situation. They all happen at the school at 3:30 p.m.
in the afternoon.
Huh.
It makes no sense. I pointed that out to Maddie. I was like, the fact that this school is having 3 events at the same day during school hours that all of these people just are gone from. And also that then they can hack into the Wi-Fi somehow and it just makes all of the technology go haywire.
Yeah.
And
the scoreboard is connected to some kind of network that she can
sort of
send a
network,
message on her computer.
and it glitches it out.
Yeah.
And then, as the principal says, per school safety guidelines, we have to exit the gym.
Yeah.
Because the scoreboard is glitched.
They were prepared. I wonder how much it was on purpose. Like, I wonder if they were making this as just a normal Disney Channel original movie.
I think they released this as an original movie on its own and were shocked at how big it became.
Yeah.
And made 2, and then 2 had more hype, and then were big enough to make 3.
Yeah. So, okay. We're going to introduce a new segment here. I'm going to call it Rose and Thorn. What's in your mind the rose, the highest, the best part about the movie? Could be a character, could be an actor, could be a scene, a line, anything. And what's the worst? So start with the worst.
Yeah, let's just get it out there. Any basketball related thing, not good. It's kind of how all sports movies tend to be, especially made for TV movies, where you're like, these are theater kids who have never touched a ball in their life. And they are trying really hard to make this look natural and normal for them.
Definitely.
This is Kenny Ortega, who, I don't know him or his life, probably never played sports, trying to write dialogue for a sports team and a coach.
I noticed there were multiple times where they made the same joke about the basketball team scoring touchdowns.
Yeah. They're doing their best to show what they think sports are.
Yeah.
So anything to do with Zac Efron's dad, Troy's dad as the coach, just feels very cheesy and slapped together.
Total cornball.
Also, I'm confused. They call it a playoff game for the first half of the movie, and then the second half they call it the championship game.
I think there might have been a little changing in the writing halfway through.
And they call it the league championship.
Yeah.
I don't know what a league championship game is for high school.
Yeah.
It feels like it's their district. They're playing West High, East High versus West High. Same with the decathlon.
Yeah.
It's East High versus West High. So we don't really know there. But then Miss Darbus, is that her name?
Yeah. Dude, you're picking way too many things.
I'll stop there.
Okay, great.
The weakest point for me is anything related to basketball.
Okay, great. The thing that took me out, like I said, there's things that make this movie that are objectively bad about this movie that make me like it more. This was objectively just horrible. On the little subtitles in the movie, whenever, like at different points, it'd be like detention, Darbus style. And then at the end, it says playoff game day, decathlon day, audition day, help. Did you notice that? It's so bad.
Okay, I was going to say, I only noticed those subtitles come up when it said detention Darbus style.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is this a thing that they do? I forgot that they titled scenes.
Yeah. The one, when it says
like
help, who's saying help?
It's like, are you trying to...
Who's
is this
speaking?
a comic book?
Yeah.
Is you like doing a narrator?
Yeah, there's no narrator. Who's saying help? Is it the school that's saying help? Anyways, that was the weak point for me. It took me out. What about your rose, your highest height for this film? You got to find something.
It was difficult for me to think about. How about you say yours first, and then I can.
To me, the thing this movie does the absolute best that anywhere else in the multiverse this goes way wrong is the character of Chad, Corbin Blue. Chad pulls off still being likable with maybe the most annoying dialogue possible.
What spell has this elevated IQ temperature scroll cast that suddenly makes you want to be in a musical?
Look, I just did it. Who cares?
Who cares? Look, how about your most loyal best friend?
Quiet in here, Mr. Danforth.
It's him, Miss Falstaff, not me. Look, you're a hoops dude, not a musical singer person. Have you ever seen Michael Crawford on a cereal box?
Who's Michael Crawford?
Exactly my point. He was the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. Now, my mom, she's seen that musical 27 times, and she put Michael Crawford's picture in our refrigerator. Yeah, not on it, in it. So my point is, if you play basketball, you're gonna end up on the cereal box. If you sing in musicals, you're gonna end up in my mom's refrigerator.
Why would she put his picture in her refrigerator?
One of her crazy diet ideas. Look, I don't attempt to understand the female mind, Troy.
He says the line, "You're a hoops dude, not a musical singing person," and you still like him after he says that. Yeah. Imagine just any typical jock that you'd cast in that role saying that. He becomes, this movie is no longer a success because that character is so annoying. But instead, you like him. So Chad is my highest height.
Yeah, he is good. I would say the part that's the most believable in this, and I'm not totally sure why, but the most believable thing to me is the crush that Troy and Gabriella have on each other. You don't question that for a second.
It's their dynamic for what it is nominal.
Mm-hmm.
Like two unknown childish actors in a Disney Channel thing, the like flirty dynamic between them is actually amazing.
I never questioned like, oh, do these characters actually like each other? Just because they pulled off well. And probably because they liked each other in real life and they started dating. So it was probably just real. They probably weren't acting. They didn't have to cover up their disdain for each other.
Yeah.
Speaking of other things that did well that covered up, Troy's hair covering his ears.
Yeah.
You never once see those ears throughout this entire movie.
And here's the deal. People liked it. People said, I want to look like that.
For sure. At that time, in
2006.
2006, as 9-year-old me, that's the hair I wanted.
Do you think he was following the Zach and Cody hair, or do you think it was vice versa?
I think it was all part of the same.
It was just the style.
Yeah. I think they both solidified. Like Zach and Cody did it, and people thought it was cool. I think then Troy did it afterward, and it solidified it as like, oh, this is the haircut.
You know who else did it?
Oliver Oaken.
Me. I need to find you a picture.
I did as well.
I looked awful.
My hair was a little poofier and too curly. It wasn't as straight as
no, my hair is so fine that it just came straight down. I need to show you a picture. Man, it looked awful.
And then, yeah, we don't need to get into Disney Channel haircuts. It'd be too long.
Anyways, I'm going to jump into a recap and then we can talk about where we want to go. So, listener, if you haven't seen High School Musical in a while, here it is. High School Musical is a Disney Channel original movie about Troy Bolton, a popular basketball player, and Gabriella Montez, a shy new student, who meet at a karaoke contest and discover their mutual love for singing. Despite peer pressure and various obstacles, they audition for the school musical. Their decision inspires their friends to pursue their own interests and break social norms. In the end, they're able to bring the school together in celebration of their own unique traits and interests. So, before we get too much into this movie, I kind of want to just talk about how we approach this podcast in general. The kind of idea behind this podcast is we live in a post-Christian culture, which means we live in a culture that still holds on to the values of Christianity, but we want to do away with Jesus as the central figure of that cultural norm, those values.
Yeah.
That's the general idea. So what we want to do is we want to take the messages that we're receiving through media, through movies, and we want to take those values and talk about how they relate back to biblical truth. Yeah. we almost always, and actually have always up to this point, been in agreement with the message of the movie. And I want to do the same here up to a point, but I think there's an important conversation to be had that's almost like a critique of the message of this movie. So just want to insert that here.
Yeah, that's great.
So the stated kind of message of the movie is don't stick to the status quo, right? The very long, very show-tuney musical number in the middle of the movie is stick to the status quo, which ultimately the message of the movie is you want to break the status quo. You don't want the expectations of others to inflict upon your own behavior or you doing the things that you are skilled at, designed to do, whatever you want to say.
Don't let other people define you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your identity is your identity. Don't let anybody else tell you you're not that.
And be authentically who you are. If you like singing, then you should be able to express that you like singing without hiding that part of yourself.
Totally. I think there's a really healthy message in this movie that we can learn a lot from, and that's the message of respect, right? Sometimes we can have this mentality of like, we want to speak the truth, right? We want to speak the truth. And so what does that mean? Sometimes that means that anyone who's outside of the church, we can come at them harshly, right? But what this movie is saying is you can be different than me and I can still care about you.
Yeah.
You know, Chad can still show up to the musical, right? And same goes for us. It's like we are called to love those who are different than us. Each of us is created by God. Each of us is created uniquely by God. The things that we are awesome at, the things that make us light up, that we're passionate about, quote unquote, our wiring, like those are things that God put into us as image bearers of him. Yeah. Like the interests that are shown in the movie between academics, athletics, and theater, like creativity is shown by God in Genesis. Athletics, like that's like one of the primary metaphors for discipline in the New Testament. And academics, like the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, like each of these things are represented by God and are something that God created for us, right? And so to, I guess, live into those things and embrace those things, that is absolutely biblical. You don't need to feel like, oh, I'm more creative, but to be a good Christian, I need to go to seminary and become an academic or something like that. It's like God has created us with freedom and we don't have to try to embrace and be somebody that we're not. However, we are called to be holy.
And we've talked about that in different episodes in Fantastic Mr. Fox and School of Rock. Both of those, we talked about how God has given us different skills, different abilities to do different things.
It's like we are called to love those who are different than us, those who are in a different situation than us and who are different people than we are, whether they're inside the church or not.
Yeah. And I like that in the movie when it shows that the two groups, the decathlon team and the basketball team, when they were seeking their own interest, it caused unnecessary harm.
Yeah.
Like what they wanted to do was they wanted Gabriella to be on the decathlon team and Troy to be on the basketball team and them to not focus on this musical. And so they came at them very harshly and deceitfully and tried to, basically bully them into doing that. And what that did was caused harm in their friendships. It ruined Troy and Gabriella's relationship. And there was this unnecessary harm because they came at it selfishly. And then whenever they change their mind, they come back with love and care of, hey, you're different from me and I can respect that and that's okay. And I just want to support you in this other pursuit and I want to show up for you. And they came as friends. They were able to do it in a healthy way. Things were restored. And so I like that concept. There's a selflessness of when I'm looking to my friend and I'm just loving and caring for them and not thinking of my own selfish interests, I can do that in a way that love and supports them.
There's just right where what you're talking about, whenever the basketball team and the academic decathlon team are conspiring against Troy and Gabriella, kind of pans over to Sharpay and Ryan. And it almost is like in dialogue saying exactly what you're saying. It's actually in their best interest to support their friends. They can't hear what they're saying, but they say,
they must be trying to figure out a way to make sure Troy and Gabriella actually beat us out. No, The jocks rule most of the school, but if they get Troy into the musical, then they've conquered the entire student body.
And if those science girls get Gabriella hooked up with Troy Bolton, the Scholastic Club goes from drool to cool. Ryan, we need to save our show from people who don't know the difference between a Tony Award and Tony Hawk.
Do you really think that's gonna work?
It's the only way to save Troy and Gabriella from themselves.
And so it's in their best interest to support their friends and to love their friends. But there's this unnecessary disunity between them because they have their own kind of narrow goals that they're trying to focus on.
Yeah, they're just looking out for themselves. Something I think that this movie points out that for us as believers and thinking of how we're called to live is sometimes you're going to do the thing that is not popular. So for Troy and Gabriella to try to follow this dream they have of being in the musical, this shared passion that they have, that is not popular. The school sings a whole song about you got to stay in your lane and stick to being the basketball guy.
Yeah.
Paul talks about in Galatians 1:10, and he says, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ."
Yeah.
Knowing the story of Paul used to actively go against Christians and kill Christians. And then when he met God, he flipped 180, totally changed. Now he's preaching the gospel and spreading the gospel. And it is not popular. Like, that is the opposite of what him and his friends were in support of before. For him to now pursue sharing the gospel is something that is risking his life.
Yep.
It is not going to be looked on favorably. And so what he's saying here is, I'm not doing this so that other human beings are going to look at me and approve of what I'm doing. I'm doing this because I'm trying to seek the approval of God, who created me, who knows me, who loves me, and who has my best interest in mind.
Yeah, just to build there, 1 Corinthians 4:3 says, also Paul here, he says, "I care very little if I am judged by you or any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. It is the Lord who judges me." So I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I don't care what I think about me.
Yeah.
I care about what the Lord thinks about me, right?
And we will be right back.
Check this out, listener. Are you a small business owner who's tired of spending hours a month on your finances? Are you stressed out about taxes or unsure what you're doing? I get it. Our friends at Abound Bookkeeping provide accounting solutions that free you up to focus on what matters, your business. Abound Bookkeeping goes above and beyond for every single client and prioritizes timely communication and individual attention to each client. That's you. If you're needing help with banking reconciliations, filing sales tax, running payroll, budgeting, or invoicing, check out the link in the show notes.
And back to the show. Yeah.
Just what you're saying, like within the movie, the primary message of the movie is don't care what other people think about you. Just do what you want to do. Like do what you should do.
Yeah.
Even. And John 16:33, Jesus says, "I've told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world." Yeah. So there's gonna be opposition to you, right? But where we deviate from the movie is not you need to follow yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
You need to be submitted to God. And you will have trouble. There's going to be people who judge you and think poorly of you, but in the end, it's for the best, right?
You know, Darvis will take any opportunity to bust my chops, and that includes yours, too.
Hey, Dad. Did you ever think about trying something new, but we're afraid of what your friends might think?
I mean, like going left? You're doing fine. Come on.
Well, no. I mean, what if you want to try something really new, and it's a total disaster and all your friends laugh at you?
Well, then maybe they're not really your friends. And that was my whole point about team today. You guys got to look out for each other, and you're the leader.
His dad is saying people who only want you to be this one certain thing are people who don't actually love you, right? What he's not saying is if someone wants the best for you, if someone is concerned for you, then they're not actually your friends, right? But I think sometimes we get confused between those two things.
I think a lot of times people can mix up opposition any sort of opposition, if you don't agree with me, then therefore you're not my friend.
Yeah.
Versus, I think what his dad was probably intending and what the Bible would say is more like, if people are not wanting the best for you and they're only wanting you to be a certain way for them, it's like a selfish act, then they're not your friends, meaning they're not actually caring for you. They're looking out for themselves.
Right.
There's a difference between, oh, if anybody disagrees with you, they're not your friend. That is not true.
The different teams within the school, the basketball team, the academic team, they are casting judgment poorly against Troy and Gabriella just because they're doing something that's a little bit different. They're a little bit outside the box of like,
oh, you're doing something that's uncommon, that I'm not used to, therefore I think it's bad.
Exactly.
If you're doing something that is uncommon, people are going to come against you. Don't let these societal norms that are just unhealthy, set there by, popularity or whatever. Don't let peer pressure stop you from doing the things that bring you joy.
Yeah.
Then there's a taking it a step further of do whatever you want and whatever makes you happy. And that ultimately gets very dangerous and can very much not be true because we desire a lot of things that are not good for us and not healthy for us.
And I think it's an important conversation to nuance, right? So the way we talk about this of somebody who's inside of the church and somebody who's outside is different, right? 1 Corinthians 5:12 says, "For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those that I'm to judge inside the church? God judges those outside, purge the evil person from among you." So if somebody's not following Jesus, like we've said before, they're playing by different rules. Like we shouldn't have the same expectations for them that we would somebody who is within the church.
Yeah.
Troy missing practice, right? That's something that the team is totally should get onto him for that, right? There's the moment that you were talking about where they put the camera on the thing and he says, if you guys don't know, I give 110% to this team, and I'm like, you don't know me. But he just missed practice like yesterday to go paint sets, right? So in that situation, their judgment is correct.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, the coach, his dad, takes it way easier on him than he should for their star player just not showing up to practice with no explanation.
Yeah, the week before the championship or whatever. Yeah.
That's a normal thing to quote unquote judge someone on and to lovingly correct them on.
Yeah.
That harms the rest of the team. That hurts our chances of winning. You're the basketball guy.
Yeah.
You're not a sing-song person.
Yeah.
That is an unhealthy judgment where they're just saying, hey, that's uncommon. I'm not used to that. Therefore, it's bad.
Right. Totally.
The unhealthy judgment would be if, the basketball team got mad at Gabriella for missing practice. You're like, that's not her. She has not agreed. Yeah, she didn't sign up for that. That's not her goal. We're going to judge people who are following Jesus, people in the church, differently than others. The Bible talks about as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And that's kind of what we're saying here too, of like, not, hey, I want you to do this, so therefore I'm judging you. It's, hey, we're doing this together. We're pursuing this together. And so for believers to call one another out or judge another believer, we can do that as Jesus tells us to, not judging based on our own judgments, but we're judging based on God's word.
Yeah.
We're pointing back to our common goal, saying, hey, here's what God's word has said. We're pursuing Jesus together. So I want to help remind you of the goal.
2 Timothy 3 says, all scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. You don't have to look like a certain person. You don't have these extra biblical ideas that you need to live in because that's what's normal. Like there's a level of freedom outside of God's call. But the number one thing is love God, right? To walk in God's commands. And so that's where within this movie, there's this idea of like, you have this internal self, like your own desires should drive you.
And I think a helpful clarifier of where the Bible comes from, where we're coming from, is there is a God who has created us, who knows us intimately. He knows and loves and cares about us. Just like a loving parent who gives their kids instructions for their protection, not to play in the street or all these other things that they know their kids are inclined to do, but they want to keep them protected and they want to love and cherish and see their kid thrive.
Yeah.
So that's the place we operate out of when we're thinking, hey, we want to follow what God has set for us. And John 14:15 says, Jesus is talking and he says, if you love me, you will obey my commandments.
Yeah.
And so that the most important commandment to love God, and then the next is like it to love others as yourself. The most important to love God. If we love God, we're going to follow his commandments.
Yeah. Yeah. Galatians 5 says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the illusion is that restriction, bad, freedom is good. But what Galatians 5 says is, it is for freedom that he has set us free. Jesus says, take on my yoke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take on my guiding direction for you, for it's easy and it is light. In opposition with stand firm then and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. What we don't understand a lot of times is that our quote unquote freedom and desire to break free from any sort of limitation,
Mm-hmm.
including what God says, is we don't understand that there is a significant downside. We are going to be burdened by a yoke of slavery whenever we walk in sin because
Mm-hmm.
we are no longer in control at that point.
Yeah. And just in case anyone doesn't know, we're not talking about yoke, Y-O-L-K, for
Yeah.
eggs. Yoke, Y-O-K-E, which is like you put across the shoulders of cattle to pull something.
Yep.
And so what he's saying when he's saying his yoke is easy and his burden is light is when we align ourselves with where Christ is going and we attach ourselves to him to work together with him, that is not a heavy burden on our shoulders.
Yeah.
So just clarifying, we're not talking about eggs.
Yeah. Good clarifier for any egg people.
There's the point where Troy and Gabriella are on the rooftop garden,
Yeah.
which sick
Yeah,
that a
very
high
sick.
school has that.
Yep.
And she talks about, do you remember when you're in kindergarten and you would meet someone and instantly you would be best friends playing together?
Do you remember in kindergarten how you'd meet a kid and know nothing about them, then 10 seconds later you were playing like you were best friends? Because you didn't have to be anything but yourself.
Yeah.
Singing with you felt like that.
I think what the movie's getting at is don't let other people tell you who you are. Be who you truly are. And where the dangerous interpretation of that, the harmful interpretation of that, is you are defining who you are.
Yeah.
What the Bible would say and what is more truthful is that God is defining who we are. The idea of being who you truly are and operating out of your true identity is true.
Yep.
It's where we think that identity comes from that determines whether that's helpful or not.
This movie is saying something biblical. Disregard what other people think about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also saying follow your heart. So it's kind of a herald of the gospel of self. And so I'm going to read real quick from probably the most important book I've ever read called Disappearing Church by Mark Sayers. This is his list of traits of the gospel of self. So it says, the set of beliefs held are: the highest good is individual freedom, happiness, self-definition, and self-expression. Traditions, religions, received wisdom, regulations, and social ties that restrict individual freedom, happiness, self-definition, and self-expression must be reshaped, deconstructed, or destroyed. The world will inevitably improve as the scope of individual freedom grows. The primary social ethic is tolerance of everyone else's self-defined quest for individual freedom and self-expression. Any deviation from this ethic of tolerance is dangerous and must not be tolerated. Humans are inherently good. Forms of external authority are rejected, and personal authenticity is lauded. So all of those things are kind of represented in this movie of anyone who's telling you what to do needs to be disregarded, right? And so what Jesus says, we alluded to it earlier, but in Matthew 11 says, Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Why are they weary and burdened? Because they've been trying to follow their own desires and what they think is best. He says, take my yoke, Y-O-K-E, upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The gospel of self sounds great. We have all this freedom, but the truth is that freedom leads us somewhere. And at the end of that road is not this utopia that we think that it's going to be. Ultimately, our own desires driving us are leading us to destruction. That point on the list of humans are inherently good is, I think, the biggest lie that is out there. In this movie, Troy wants to sing, and anyone who restricts that desire is bad because that's where he feels fully alive, right? In the movie, that's fine. But in reality, whenever it comes to our every desire being unrestricted, no limitation being placed on us by anybody, that leads us to places of addiction, darkness, depression. We are not wired in a way that under our own jurisdiction, we're going to lead ourselves towards goodness, right?
Yeah. I think it's obvious to see that humans left to their own devices do not always act inherently good for the betterment of everyone. And so it's not something that we can get behind saying, oh yeah, everyone should do what they want to do. And that would make the world a better place, because people have harmful, sinful desires. And so understanding, hey, I am not always right, so therefore I can't always trust what I want to do. I'm going to trust the God who knows me and made me and cares for me and loves me more than I trust anybody else, but also more than I even trust myself, because I know that I'm not always right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think where we differ from the movie is, hey, don't follow your heart, follow God, right? And what does that look like whenever it comes to the expectations of others and expectations we have for other people is if they're within the church, we correct them. We quote unquote judge in that case, and we bring them back in. Why? Because the way of Jesus is easy and light, because that's where life is, right? Destruction lies outside of that. If they haven't accepted Jesus and the gospel, then we love them. We do everything we can to win them over, right? We don't cast judgment and try to change behavior, because that does not work, and that's not what Jesus even wants. He wants a relationship, right?
We should be marked by love, that we should be seen as people who love and care for one another. And that's going to be hard to do, but that's not us doing it on our own. We are called to do it out of the Lord. He says, in this life, you're going to have trouble. People are going to hate you because they hated me first. But he's saying that he's going to be with us, and he's going to be the one providing us strength to do those things. Again, going back to his yoke is easy and light. We're doing it with him on his strength because we know that his way is better. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we can take away most from this movie is we can do the right thing. We can, in the movie, it's follow your own desires. In our Christian context, we can follow God despite what others say or think about us. We may be discouraged by our closest friends. We may risk social exile. Ultimately, we can follow God because he's got us, and that's what we are called to do. Yeah. And in a cool addition that I do like in the messaging of this story, that when Troy and Gabriella tried to pursue this goal that they wanted secretly and on their own, that was when it caused trouble. And once they could support each other, the friends could act selflessly for Troy and Gabriella, and Troy and Gabriella could openly share that with their friends that, hey, we want to do this. This is what we want to pursue, and still pursue their decathlon, still pursue the championship game, that they are able to pull it all off only because everybody's seeking the good of everybody else to be able to support each other. I thought that was cool. Yeah, love it. I think it's great. I have a question. In the movie, there is a seemingly poisonous gas released in the academic decathlon, and one, we never go back and see them. Two, is everyone okay? And three, well, I guess this is not a question, it's a statement. The movie accidentally contradict its own point of like every different pursuit is equal, because the basketball game gets a way
bigger like plot point
for sure.
than the academic thing.
Which is why Jarvis is so pissed.
That's right.
If it actually is poisonous and they released a poisonous gas, then there's going to be some health problems for everyone in that room, and that's not a good thing.
That's High School Musical 4, is they're all like battling some kind of ailment later on in life. Okay, that's what I've got, man. Any last thoughts?
I think this episode is a first for us. This is the first time that we've kind of deviated from the message of the movie and said, hey, here's some things we support and things the Bible support, and here's some things that are probably not true.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a critique, and I think we don't want, kind of back to what I was saying earlier, like we don't want to try and like nitpick the messages of movies, because just like we're talking about, it's like they're not asking for that standard, so we don't want to apply that standard to it. But this is a really important, weirdly, a really important movie and a really important message that's out there right now. And so I think biblical counter argument, I guess, is really important for it.
Yeah, man, this movie should not be as popular as it is, but
I'm glad that it is.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
And we're all in this together. Roll credits.
Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on Instagram at The Credits Podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, go ahead and shoot it to them in a text. If it doesn't brighten their day, it'll certainly brighten ours.